Today I'm going to take a look at the OB-6 versus the Arturia OB XA V. Arturia OB XA V's only just come out, so you know they look the same, they've got the same sort of lineage, the same heritage, or they're based on the same lineage or the same heritage. So worthwhile taking a quick look and see if they can do similar things. And this is by no means a full review, just a comparison of the two. A couple of years ago I did a comparison of lots of soft synths and the OB-6 of Oberheim style soft synths and those with SCM style filters, which is well worth taking a look at, if only to listen to my amazing reproduction of Princess the Beautiful Ones using all those Oberheim-ish synths. Although I have now added it to this as well, so you've heard it anyway. And I should also say, don't forget to subscribe if you find this of any use, because I've got well over 100 videos now of comparisons and demos and walkthroughs of synths, so if you're into your synths, this is the place to be. Before I get into it, if you're just interested in the answer is they don't sound the same, and I'll go run through quickly why that is. The X mod on the OB-6, with VCO, shape, PWM, filter type, filter frequency, being able to be modulated by VCO2 isn't possible on the OB XA V. I think I'll call it the Arturia from now on. But the Arturia's got these 4 separate envelopes, a bit like the Profits, or the Rev 2 I should say really, Pro 8. And you can go and you can add all these various things to those, and these can be loopable envelopes if you want. So there's all sorts of things in poly mode as well. So really nice set of envelopes in there, but it doesn't make up for not having the X mod, and obviously on the OB-6, you've only got the 2 envelopes and a single LFO. There's your LFO there, and there's your destinations. And the destinations you get on the OB XA are here. You've also got a modulation matrix on the Arturia with velocity, keyboard position, aftertouch, mod wheel, and the filter envelope. So you've got similar sort of things over here. So cross-mod capabilities on the OB-6 far outstrip the Arturia, and the Arturia's assignable LFOs stroke envelopes plus the modulation matrix outstrips the modulation capabilities, not the capabilities or the modulation options that you have on the OB-6. So it depends if more modulation matrix and modulation options are more important to you, or the cross mod and using VCO2, because they both create completely different types of sounds. This has got the SCM style state variable filter, low pass, smooth to notch, smooth to high pass. Whereas the OB XA has, in the effects, a multi-mode. There we go. So it's got low pass, high pass, band pass, and 2 cone filters, which are really nice actually, but they're not state variable. And the OB XA doesn't have a notch. So we're starting to see, I've been playing with this for a while, trying to do similar sort of tones, and it was driving me insane because I just had to strip it all back, strip it back to the basics, take away the X mod, and take away all the modulation matrix options that you've got on the OB XA. To do that, I came up with just a sound like this. Here we go. And if you do that and you match them, they can sound the same. So if that's what you wanted to know, there you go. But they're so different that as soon as you start leading off and trying to match one preset from the OB-6 on the OB XA or match a preset from the Arturia on the OB-6, it just falls apart. So the modulation's different, the filter's different, the oscillators are different, in that on the OB XA you've got a saw, a triangle, or a square. That's triangle, that's saw, and that's saw and square. So on the OB-6, oscillator 1's only got a sawtooth and a square, but you can blend between them. And oscillator 2's got the triangle, the sawtooth, and the square. But again, you can blend between them. And this has got the low frequency mode, so you can use it as an extra LFO. But of course, the OB-6 has got lots more LFOs. Plus, you've got sub-octave on the OB-6, which you don't have on the Arturia. So if you don't want to listen to the rest of it, there you go. They're not going to sound the same, but you can make them sound the same if you strip everything back and just do equivalent tones on both. But if you're interested in, does this sound like an Oberheim synth? Yes, it does. So before I get a little bit more analytical and forensic and start looking at the filters and stuff, I will just go through the sound I've just created, which I think is a pretty typical OB sounding patch. And that's just a single sawtooth with a bit of LFO on VCO1 and the filter frequency with a load of detune. If I take unison off, you can hear how out of tune each of those oscillators are. Let's do the same over here. Similar. So let's take the detune off completely. Really similar. So sticking with the basic panel that we've got here, so this is just a modulated sawtooth. If we take the modulation off, we're starting to sound like similar synths, aren't we? So let's just take a look at this main filter that we've got on the front. I'm not going to go into the multi-mode filter because it's not designed to be the same as the OB-6. But if we just stick to the low pass 2-pole mode, which is the same as the low pass on this, we can get similar sounds out of it. So turning the frequency all the way up and turn this mod all the way up as well. If you haven't got the mod up, you don't get your full range. I'll show that now. If mod's on 0, the cutoff's reduced. So volume matching those. There's the OB-6. And there's the Arturia. And if you look at the frequency analysis, the Arturia is slightly, well, you can hear it's slightly brighter. OB-6 is sort of tickling 9K there, isn't it? At the top end, and the Arturia is more like 10. So let's now add some resonance to that and try and match them up. But they do sound similar, don't they? The main difference is the interaction between the frequency, the modulation amount or the envelope amount, and the sustain. As soon as you've got a bit of release, the modulation amount comes into play and you can hear the envelope on the filter when you can't on the OB-6. So I think that covers the filter really. You can see they've got a similar curve, they can sound quite similar. The only real difference I'm getting is that interaction between the envelope, the filter amount, and the cutoff frequency. But generally you can get the same sort of tones. Shall we have a listen quickly then to the oscillator? See what it sounds like. Let's turn everything on full again. Turn the release down. They sound good enough to me, good enough to almost be identical. Go to the square and just test the pulse width amount and stuff like that. So it doesn't quite go through 0. Let's try the square over here then. Look, so this one goes through 0. Got 50 in the centre, no indent though. And then it's a bit more like the OB XA on this end. Again, nothing in that really. So let's try PWM. On this we go to the pulse width. We've got the LFO on a sine. Let's add some amount. Simple. Okay, over here, pulse width. We go oscillator 1 pulse width. And we'll put the depth up a little bit. Pull the rate down and we're on a sine. Okay, move that up to halfway. So without trying to get them identical, as I'm playing these, I find it's easier to get it from the OB-6 again. Or just easier to get sounds I quite like. I quite like all of that. I'm going to play this. I'm just finding it a bit more difficult to get tones I like, where sort of anything to do on the OB-6 is fine and sort of wants me to play more and do different things with it. So this is your maximum PWM. Initial amounts on full. Let's turn this on to full and see what we get. It's a bit odd that it doesn't sound like an even sweep. Just because I can't help myself, I'm going to take a look at that on the oscilloscope because it is a bit weird. So it seems like it's just hanging around at one end. It's not a continuous sweep. So let's change the initial pulse width. So no, that didn't help. And this may well be what the original did. Let's have a look at the OB-6, see what that does. That's a definite smooth transition, just left and right, as you'd expect. And you don't hear that square all the way through it. So back over here, completely different tone. Another look, just check I'm not being absolutely mental about something. LFO rates there, depth. Now I can't work that out. And while the camera's recording and everything's recording, I haven't got time, but it just doesn't sound the same, does it? And I, for one, prefer the OB-6, but if you're a big OB-X fan, you may well prefer the OB XA V, because that might be exactly how it works. And on the Arturia, you can't independently change the pulse width on oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. This knob here does them both. Okay, so now we're looking at modulation. Let's move into the cross mod on the oscillators. So on the Arturia, oscillator 2 is modulating oscillator 1, is it? Let's just check that out. Oscillator 2 is not playing, so this is just oscillator 1. So let's, what frequency have we got this on? It's an octave higher. Let's try that on the OB-6. So that'll be on C2 normally, so this should go to C3. And then turn that down. Put the X mod on VCO2 full. Just check it's on right. It's a VCO1, so turn VCO1 up. So the Arturia's got a lot more cross modulation in there. About 85% cross mod on the Arturia equates to full X mod on the OB-6. As I play each key on this, you can hear that each of the oscillators are slightly detuned from each other. Let's check that's on 0. Yeah, and that's just because the VCOs they're just slightly different, and cross mod is really sensitive to changes in pitch. So let's just put this on detune. Not quite getting the same effect. Maybe you should recalibrate this, put it through the calibration routine. So I can't match them really. I could spend forever trying to do it. So they're not quite the same, but they're not bad actually. But you get more cross mod on the Arturia. I remember doing the Prophet 6 versus the Pro 1 as well, and the Prophet 6 has a lot less than the Pro 1. So the new Dave Smiths don't have quite as much cross mod as the old stuff, by the looks of things. But obviously on this you've then got shape mod. So getting those beautiful little tones. But getting all that sort of mad cross mod stuff using the shape and the filter as well as VCO1 isn't possible on the Arturia because the cross mod only works on oscillator 1. So it's like you've only got that button there. Well, we've looked at the modulation, we looked at the oscillators, we've looked at the filter and the mixer, and we've sort of touched on the envelopes as well. And what I've found is if that you dial in a preset on either of them, you can't match it with the other because there's just too many differences. But if you try and emulate one to the other, there are certain tones that sound very similar. But if you use pulse width modulation, for example, you can't do it. But using a simple square or a sawtooth and a triangle and playing with just the low pass filter on this, you can get them to sound the same. And they've definitely got the same character. They definitely feel like they've come from the same place. But they're in no way the same synth. Well, I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere, and if it was, please subscribe and maybe check out my Patreon page where I'm uploading a whole series of tutorial videos demonstrating how to program almost any synth, looking at subtractive synthesis and all the different modules and how they all sort of work on most synths. So once you've got the basic ideas, you can just start programming anything, and you can then forget about your presets and start creating the sounds that you want. So well worth a look if you get a chance. But I'll see you next time. Thanks.